The climb up a mountain can feel very hard, but when we finally make it up there, it's such a triumphant feeling. Unfortunately, when we get up there, a lot of times we can get very complacent. We can get lazy. And that's all it takes for us to get knocked off that mountain. And let's face it, the higher up you've gone, the further you have to fall.
It's time for games and praising Jesus' name. It's a cross between geekiness and godliness.
Hello everyone, Mike here, and one of my favorite movie franchises is Rocky. I know as a kid I used to watch specifically Rocky 4. I'd watch it all the time, and I'd get these cardboard boxes, take crayons and draw boxing trunks on the boxes, and then I'd just punch them while pretending to be Rocky. So I was a big fan of Rocky, and I love the movies. In Rocky 3, we find though that Rocky, after winning the world title from Apollo Creed, gets very complacent. He gets lazy. As Mick puts it, he gets civilized. He stops taking things as seriously. He starts coasting. And then even when he's getting ready for his big fight with Clubber Lang, he just makes a big show out of it and turns it into a big circus. And of course it leads to him getting pretty badly beaten by Clubber and losing a lot in that beyond just the title. And unfortunately, complacency and spiritual laziness is something that we Christians tend to deal with a lot. I actually can speak from my own experience. You may notice I haven't really had anything substantial to put on here for, a few weeks. And it's because I had allowed myself to get kind of lazy. And the problem is when you get lazy, it's not that God stops talking to you, but you stop listening. And I was constantly thinking, I need to, put some content together for my channel. But no inspiration was coming. There were plenty of things that God wants me to talk about, but I had gotten so complacent that I wasn't listening for any of them. So no matter how hard I tried to look, I couldn't find anything to talk about. I just kept reading through my Bible, but nothing was jumping out at me. And even that was a problem. I was reading my Bible, but I wasn't really taking in what I was reading. Unfortunately, a lot of times we can get very confident in where we are in our Christian walk, and that's when we tend to fall. 1 Corinthians 10:12 says, "Therefore let anyone who thinks that he stands take heed, lest he fall." As I said in my little opening, it's very easy to become lazy once we reach a certain point. And that happens with Christianity. We start out feeling so vigorous in our walk with God. But as time passes, if we're not careful, we can allow ourselves to get lazy. And that's when we fall. That's when the devil will hit us. Not only trying to keep us away from God, trying to put us in positions where we'll spend more time doing things besides talking to God. Less time praying, less time reading our Bible, less time just being with God, focusing on other things. But it's not just that. The devil will then try to get us with the things we struggle with. If there's a temptation that we deal with, if we aren't on our guard, if we aren't keeping that strong relationship with God, that's when Satan will step in and he will cause us to stumble. That's why the Bible is constantly telling us to be on guard and to flee temptation and not just run away from temptation, but run to God. We need to go to God to keep away from the temptation and the things that will hinder us from our walk with God. Hebrews 5:11 and 12 says, "About this we have much to say, and it is hard to explain since you have become dull of hearing. For though by this time you ought to be teachers, you need someone to teach you again the basic principles of the oracles of God. You need milk, not solid food." When we get lazy, we lose track of the things that we should be doing. As we grow in our spiritual walk with God, we take on the responsibilities of trying to lead other people to God. But if we are falling apart ourselves, how are we going to reach others? It's all about knowing the things that we should be doing and doing them. James 4:17 says, "So whoever knows the right thing to do and fails to do it, for him it is sin." When we fall out of our relationship with God and get complacent and lazy, then we're not accomplishing the things that God wants us to do. And that's just such a horrible position to be in, because we have so much that we can do and so much that we want to do. But we're not going to be able to do that if we're getting lazy. We know the things that God wants us to do, and we have to keep moving forward. We can't allow the things of this world to distract us. We can't allow Satan to pull us away from God. We cannot be lazy, and we can't get complacent in our walk. Much like how Rocky had to find that spark again, that eye of the tiger, we need to find the vigor that we had. When we lose our place in that walk, when we get complacent, we need to immediately go to God. We need to pray for forgiveness for allowing ourselves to be that way, and we need to pray that God will strengthen us again, bring us back to where we were, and bring us higher than we were. In my case, when I went to God, that's when the inspiration came back. When I tried just doing it on my own, I didn't get out of my little funk. It wasn't until I went to God that things got better. At the end of the day, I wish I hadn't fallen out of it to begin with. But we're human, we're weak. But that's why we need God, and that's why we need to constantly go back to God. That's why we can't neglect our daily time with God, reading our Bible, praying, taking time to really just get away from everything else and let God show us the way to go. Just like how Rocky became champion again when he got rid of the laziness, when we get rid of our laziness, we can find our place right next to God, just like we're always supposed to. That's all I've got on this one. I hope this has been a blessing for you. Until next time.